What if you could walk into any room and instantly sense who's lying, who's hiding pain, who secretly admires you, and who's just wearing a mask? What if you could decode human behavior not through magic but through science? Every blink, every shift, every pause tells a story. And once you learn to read it, nothing about people will ever be a mystery again. In this audiobook, you'll discover the secret psychology behind body language, facial expressions, energy shifts, and emotional signals even things people don't want you to see. This isn't manipulation. This is mastery. This isn't judgment. It's empathy sharpened by awareness. Because when you truly learn to read people, you don't just understand them, you connect, influence, protect, and lead with unshakable clarity. Welcome to the science of reading people, where perception becomes your greatest power. Chapter 1. The hidden language of human behavior. Reading people begins not with hearing what they say, but with observing what they do. Before a person utters a single word, their body has already spoken volumes. From the way they walk into a room to how they hold their hands while speaking, every movement broadcasts a message. Human beings evolved to communicate with gestures long before language was developed. And those nonverbal cues still make up over 60% of how we communicate today. A slight shift in posture can indicate discomfort. A genuine smile involves the eyes. A microexpression, a flash of motion lasting less than a second, can reveal someone's true feelings even when they try to hide them. FBI agents, psychologists, and behavioral analysts rely on this silent language to assess threats, understand motives, and uncover truths. For example, an FBI profiler watching a suspect doesn't just hear the answers, they watch inconsistencies between words and actions. A man claiming confidence while fidgeting with his fingers or avoiding eye contact is broadcasting anxiety, not assurance. Learning to read people is not a gift reserved for professionals. It's a skill that can be trained. It starts by becoming hyper-aware of baselines. A baseline is a person's natural behavior under normal, non-stressful conditions. Once you understand how someone behaves when they're calm, any deviation, rapid blinking, shallow breathing, crossing arms may indicate inner conflict or discomfort. It doesn't mean they're lying, but it does mean something has changed. Consider the handshake. A firm grip can signify confidence or control, while a limp one might indicate passivity or insecurity. Eye contact is equally telling. Too little might show shyness or deception, but too much can signal dominance or even aggression. The key is context. No gesture should be interpreted in isolation. Crossed arms might suggest defensiveness or simply that the room is cold. Real mastery in reading people involves pattern recognition. Just like a chess master sees multiple moves ahead, a skilled observer notices the micro shifts in energy, facial muscles, posture, and tone of voice. Take the example of mirroring. When people like each other or feel aligned, they subconsciously mimic each other's body language. This is rapport in action. When mirroring breaks, say one person leans back while the other leans forward, it could indicate a disconnect or disagreement. Facial expressions are the most universally understood cues. Psychologist Paul Ekman identified 7 universal emotions: happiness, sadness, anger, fear, surprise, disgust, and contempt, each with specific facial patterns. These expressions happen even across cultures, suggesting a biological foundation for emotional display. A furrowed brow, a curled lip, or widened eyes speak a language everyone understands instinctively, even if they don't realize it consciously. Reading people also means listening to how they speak. Their tone, rhythm, pitch, and pace add meaning beyond the words. A pause before answering may suggest hesitation. A raised pitch could indicate anxiety, and overcompensation with too much detail might be a sign of fabrication. But again, patterns matter more than isolated signs. Behavioral leaks, those involuntary signals that slip through when someone is trying to control their image, often reveal the truth. They may clear their throat excessively, touch their face, or blink more rapidly. These are not proof of lying, but signs of stress, and they warrant deeper observation. To be a true people reader, you must also become a master of empathy. Understanding people is not about judgment, it's about awareness. The more you understand how emotions, experiences, and intentions shape human behavior, the more accurately you can interpret what you see. The science of reading people is part observation, part psychology, and part intuition trained through practice. It requires a curious mind, an observant eye, and the ability to listen deeply not just to words, but to silences, hesitations, and gestures. As we move through the world, every interaction is a lesson, and every person is a book waiting to be read. Chapter 2. Decoding the face emotions that cannot lie. The face is the ultimate truth teller. While words can be shaped, censored, and twisted, the face often betrays the real story. In less than a second, a person's facial muscles can reveal emotions they haven't even fully processed yet. These are called microexpressions, fleeting flashes of true emotion that bypass conscious control. A person may smile politely, but a brief downward pull at the corners of the mouth can signal sadness. They may nod in agreement, yet their eyebrows knit in a frown that suggests doubt. These contradictions between verbal and nonverbal cues are gold mines for anyone learning to read people. Understanding microexpressions begins with recognizing the 7 universal facial expressions, scientifically proven to be shared by all humans regardless of culture or language. These are happiness, sadness, fear, anger, surprise, disgust, and contempt. Each has a unique configuration of facial muscles. Happiness involves the eyes crinkling at corners, not just upturned lips. Sadness pulls the inner corners of the eyebrows upward and may cause the lower lip to tremble. Fear widens the eyes and stretches the mouth horizontally. Anger lowers the eyebrows and flares the nostrils. Surprise raises the eyebrows and opens the mouth. Disgust scrunches the nose and raises the upper lip. Contempt appears as a one-sided lip raise. To train your eye to catch these signals, you must learn to slow down your observations and heighten your awareness. Imagine watching Somyeon in slow motion, their reaction when they receive bad news, their fleeting expression when their name is mentioned unexpectedly, or the tension that flickers across their face before they speak. These quick flashes are more reliable than rehearsed responses. In fact, many law enforcement agencies, security professionals, and intelligence officers are trained to detect these involuntary facial signs because they often reveal more than interrogations ever could. But everyday people can also learn this skill. The secret lies in mindful observation. Begin with noticing symmetry. Genuine emotions are usually symmetrical. A genuine smile, called a Dutchen smile, engages both sides of the face and reaches the eyes. A forced smile usually involves unlithe mouth. The eyes remain flat, lacking the sparkle of true happiness. Another powerful cue is the eyebrow flash. When people greet someone they like or are interested in, they often quickly raise their eyebrows for a split second. It's a nonverbal welcome signal, one that can be used to gauge attraction or social comfort. Conversely, a sudden tightening around the eyes or a clenching of the jaw might indicate suppressed anger or anxiety. Another valuable clue lies in the eyes themselves. While the old saying claims the eyes are the window to the soul, in reality they're windows to the nervous system. When people feel aroused, whether due to attraction, fear, or stress, their pupils dilate. When they're focused or hostile, their gaze becomes fixed and narrow. Rapid blinking may suggest anxiety, while staring too long can be interpreted as aggression or control. Understanding these subtleties allows you to get ahead in conversations and negotiations. For instance, if you propose an idea in a meeting and a colleague's smile is tight and doesn't reach their eyes, their micro-expression of contempt or skepticism may mean hidden opposition, even if they say, "Sounds good." The face also tells stories about comfort zones. When someone hears something uncomfortable, they might involuntarily touch their face, the nose, ears, mouth, or cheeks. These are self-soothing gestures rooted in the nervous system's fight or flight response. It's the body's unconscious way of calming itself under stress. These face-to-touching habits are not inherently dishonest, but in contexts such as during questioning, negotiation, or store idling, they can serve as behavioral red flags. To master the art of reading faces, it's not enough to memorize expressions. You must match them to context, emotional intensity, and congruence with speech. Does the person look surprised and genuinely taken aback when hearing news, or did the surprise come a moment too late, suggesting it was acted? Timing is everything. Microexpression analysis. As you hone this skill, you'll begin to trust your instinct more. You'll feel when something is off, even before your brain identifies what it is. This is the subconscious part of pattern recognition working in your favor. With enough practice, you'll spot subtle shifts in expression that alert you to lies, manipulation, interest, fear, or delight before the person puts it into words. Reading faces is not just about spotting lies. It's about gaining insight. It's about connecting deeper with people and understanding what they feel but don't say. It's about becoming emotionally intelligent, socially aware, and perceptive. When you know what to look for, the face becomes a map, and every wrinkle, twitch, and blink is a landmark on the road to human truth. Chapter 3: Body Language, the silent messenger of the mind. Before people open their mouths, their bodies start speaking. The way someone enters a room, stands during a conversation, or shifts weight from one leg to another is not random. It's a story in motion. Body language is the most ancient and honest form of communication, rooted in evolution and refined by survival. Our ancestors had to detect danger, trustworthiness, and intention not by words but by observing movement and posture. Today we are still hardwired to respond to those cues, whether we realize it or not. Every gesture, conscious or unconscious, transmits a signal. Open palms suggest honesty and openness. Crossed arms can indicate defensiveness or discomfort. Leaning forward shows interest and engagement. Leaning back might signal dominance, arrogance, or disengagement. The key is not to isolate these signals but to observe them in clusters and patterns. One gesture may be meaningless on its own, but when several signals align, the message becomes clear. For example, if Somyeon crosses their arms, avoids eye contact, and leans away, that trio likely means discomfort or resistance. Posture is a primary indicator of confidence or insecurity. Confident people tend to stand tall with shoulders, back, and head held high. Insecure or submissive individuals often make themselves smaller. Hunched shoulders, downward gaze, hands folded in front of the body. In group dynamics, confident individuals often take up more space. They stretch, lean back, gesture widely. This is a territorial signal, often subconscious. When someone invades an author's personal space, it can be a sign of aggression, dominance, or intimacy depending on their relationship. The feet are the most honest part of the body. While people often control their facial expressions and hand gestures, they rarely think about their feet. If someone's feet point toward theodore during a conversation, it may mean they want to leave. When engaged and interested, a person's feet point toward the individual they're speaking with. Shifting weight frequently or tapping toes may indicate impatience or nervousness. Hand movements also carry powerful messages. When Somyeon uses their hands to emphasize speech, open gestures, palms facing upward, it usually signals openness, honesty, and confidence. Hands behind the back, in pockets, or constantly fidgeting may indicate discomfort or a desire to hide. Steepling fingers, placing fingertips together to form a triangle, is a classic power gesture, often used by those in control or trying to assert dominance. Touching the neck or rubbing the back of neck is a classic self-soothing signal, often indicating uncertainty or stress. Scratching the head can mean confusion or searching for the right words. Wrists exposed during conversation often signal vulnerability or openness. Clenched fists, on the other hand, suggest tension or suppressed frustration. Mirroring, when someone subconsciously mimics another person's posture, gestures, or speech pattern, is a powerful indicator of connection and rapport. When people like or respect each other, they mirror each other naturally. This is the body's way of saying we're in sync. If someone suddenly stops mirroring, it can be a sign that the connection has broken or discomfort has arisen. Proxemics, the study of personal space, is another key element. Different cultures have different norms, but in general, the closer someone stands, the more intimate or aggressive the interaction. In most cases, people maintain about 18 to 24 in off-personal space with strangers. Standing closer may indicate familiarity, affection, or dominance, while stepping back may signal withdrawal or discomfort. You must also be aware of pacifying behaviors, actions that people use to calm themselves when they feel anxious, guilty, or uncertain. These include rubbing the palms, playing with jewelry, smoothing clothes, or repetitive touching of objects. These gestures help relieve internal tension and often occur when someone is under stress, hiding something, or uncertain about what they are saying. The key to mastering body language is not just to notice it, but to observe deviations from normal behavior. Every person has their baseline, how they act when relaxed. When their behavior suddenly changes even slightly, it signals a shift in emotion or thought. An abnormally calm person who starts fidgeting may be nervous. A usually expressive speaker whose sudden lip becomes stiff may be hiding something. These deviations are where the truth hides. Context matters. Crossed arms in a cold room don't mean defensiveness. Tapping feet during a long meeting could be boredom. But when these behaviors appear in emotionally charged conversations or high-stake scenarios, they become valuable data. Reading body language is not about making instant judgments. It's about developing a deeper awareness. It trains you to slow down, observe carefully, and connect more honestly. With enough practice, you'll walk into any room and feel the emotional temperature without a word being said. You'll recognize who's lying, who's nervous, who's in control, and who's pretending. This ability is more than power. It's empathy, precision, and emotional intelligence in motion. Chapter 4. The voice behind the words at decoding vocal cues. Words are powerful, but how they're spoken often reveals more than what they actually say. The tone, pitch, pace, volume, and rhythm of a voice create a secondary layer of communication that can either reinforce or contradict the message. The science of reading people includes learning to listen between lines, hearing not just what is being said, but how it's being said. This is called parallel language, and it plays a critical role in human connection and deception detection. Tone is the emotional flavor of speech. It colors every word and gives insight into the speaker's feelings. A flat tone might suggest boredom or detachment, while a warm, upbeat tone often indicates friendliness and enthusiasm. When someone says, "I'm fine," but their tone is sharp or their pitch is tense, they're not fine, they're hitting discomfort. Skilled listeners catch the mismatch between words and emotions in the tone, not just the sentences. Pitch refers to how high or low a voice sounds. Under stress, most people's pitch rises because the vocal cords tighten. This is why people often sound shrill or strained when nervous or lying. A sudden change in pitch, especially at key moments in a conversation, may signal emotional spikes like anxiety or fear. Lower pitches, especially when consistent and calm, are generally perceived as confident and trustworthy, though forced deepening of the voice may come off as manipulative. The pace of speech also reveals important information. People who speak quickly may be excited, nervous, or trying to rush past a topic. Those who speak unusually slowly may be choosing their words carefully or deliberately hiding information. Rapid speech filled with unnecessary details can indicate anxiety or even deception, especially when it feels like the speaker is trying to convince rather than simply tell. Volume is another vocal giveaway. People naturally raise their voice when emotional, angry, defensive, enthusiastic. A sudden drop in volume can indicate shame, sadness, or secrecy. Whispered words in a normal conversation might suggest something the speaker wants to keep hidden. People who consistently speak louder than necessary may be trying to assert dominance or mask insecurity. Those who speak too softly might be afraid of confrontation or lack confidence. Rhythm and pauses are where hidden truths often live. A well-placed pause can convey confidence and control, giving weight to the words that follow. But a poorly timed pause, especially after a question, is often a sign of hesitation or mental scrambling. When someone hesitates before answering a simple question or repeats the question before replying, they may be buying time to construct a believable lie. Listen also for speech disfluencies. Fillers like like, and I mean these are normal in everyday speech, but a sudden increase in disfluencies can signal nervousness or deception. The more someone tries to sound natural while concealing something, the more their verbal flow becomes uneven. The human brain struggles to multitask when lying. It must invent suppressed truth and monitor reactions at the same time, which often results in vocal leakage. Another subtle indicator is voice crackling or throat clearing. When someone is anxious or feels pressure, their vocal cords tighten and the throat dries out. That's why people often cough or clear their throat unconsciously when about to lie or during a stressful moment. It's a physiological reaction to tension, not a sign of illness. A skilled observer also notices how a person modulates their voice across different social contexts. Do someone sound overly polite in public but aggressive in private? Do they use a different tone when speaking to someone they view as inferior? These shifts reveal how they see themselves, others, and their social status. Speech patterns also reveal dominance or submission. Dominant speakers often interrupt, speak longer, and use assertive, commanding tones. Submissive speakers may use qualifying language like maybe, I think, kind of, or ask questions instead of making statements. The words "I'm sorry" used excessively may not reflect genuine apology, but rather a conditioned response to avoid conflict or please others. When interpreting vocal cues, always match the voice to the situation. Is the speaker's emotion appropriate to the moment? Is the excitement real or does it sound forced? Is the sadness in their voice matching the story they're telling? These alignments or misalignments are the key to reading truth and authenticity. Remember that the voice is connected to the emotional center of the brain. You don't just hear words, you hear fear, excitement, doubt, joy, anger, and grief. The more you train your ear, the more you'll develop a kind of emotional echolocation, detecting what others feel by how their words echo emotionally. Reading people through their voices isn't about judging or catching them in a lie. It's about tuning in. It's about listening not just with ears, but with full attention and emotional sensitivity. Whether in a business negotiation, a date, a job interview, or a family conversation, mastering vocal cues will give you the upper hand, not to manipulate others but to understand them more deeply. Now, Chapter 5: Spotting Lies, the Psychology of Deception. Lying is a human behavior as old as language itself. People lie to protect themselves, to gain advantage, to avoid consequences, or simply to save face. But no matter how well someone constructs a lie, the body often tells a different story. Understanding the psychology of deception means recognizing that lying creates cognitive dissonance, a mental conflict between what a person knows to be true and what they are saying. This conflict generates stress, and stress leaves clues. Contrary to popular belief, liars are not always nervous, shifty-eyed, or fidgeting. In fact, experienced liars often overcompensate by maintaining steady eye contact, speaking calmly, and limiting movement to avoid suspicion. This is why baseline behavior is essential. You must know how someone behaves when they're telling the truth before you can detect deception. A deviation from their norm, no matter how subtle, often signals dishonesty. 1. Of the first signs of deception is a disconnect between verbal and nonverbal communication. A person may say, "I'm confident in that decision," while their body shrinks, eyes dart, or hands tremble. These mismatches are called leakage, the emotional truth slipping through physical cues. A leak puts pressure on the brain, which must simultaneously invent a story, suppress the truth, monitor body language, and gauge the listener's reaction. That overload often leads to behavioral slips. Timing is a critical element. A truthful reaction is immediate because it's rooted in memory. A deceptive answer often comes with a slight delay while the mind constructs a plausible story. If someone repeats your question before answering or pauses longer than usual, they may be stalling for time to build a lie. Liars also tend to distance themselves from the lie by avoiding personal pronouns. Instead of saying, "I didn't take the money," they might say, "The money wasn't taken by me." This distancing language is a subconscious attempt to remove ownership of the false statement. They may also use overly formal language in an attempt to sound credible or calm. Another common pattern is excessive detail. Truth is simple. Lies are complicated. Liars often add unnecessary information to sound convincing, but these extra details can appear rehearsed or forced. When someone gives a long, winding explanation for a simple question, they might be hiding something. Voice changes are another clue. A person may speak in a higher pitch due to stress, or their voice might crack when emotions betray them. A liar's tone often fluctuates awkwardly, trying to appear calm but failing to mask the tension beneath. Hesitations, fillers like "oh" or and throat clearing are also common under the pressure of deception. Watch the hands. Truthful people tend to use natural gestures that complement their speech. Deceptive people may restrict their movements out of fear. They'll give something away. Alternatively, their hands may show agitation, wringing, rubbing, touching the face, or hiding behind objects. Hand-to-F face movements, especially around the nose, mouth, or neck, are classic anxiety indicators often associated with lying. Facial expressions also betray lies. A fake smile lacks the subtle crinkle around the eyes. A smirk may flash before someone tells a lie, especially if they think they're getting away with something. Microexpressions, those fleeting flashes of real emotion, often contradict the spoken words. For instance, someone might say, "I'm not upset," while a microexpression of anger flashes across their face. Liars often mirror less. When two people are in sync, they naturally mirror each other's gestures and posture, but someone hiding the truth may withdraw, break mirroring patterns, or create artificial distance to feel less vulnerable. They might cross their arms, lean back, or angle their body away. Subtle signs of psychological withdrawal. Sometimes people over-assert their honesty, saying things like, "to be honest with you," or "I swear to God." These qualifiers are red flags. Truth rarely needs reinforcement. The need to insist on truthfulness can indicate inner doubt. One of the most powerful indicators of deception is incongruence. That's when the tone, facial expression, and body language don't match the content of speech. A person claiming to be calm but showing physical signs of tension is likely hitting something. This incongruence creates a gut feeling in observers, a sense that something doesn't feel right. However, it's critical to remember no single behavior proves deception. All clues must be interpreted in context and compared to the individual's baseline. A nervous person isn't necessarily lying. An introvert may avoid eye contact even when telling the truth. Cultural differences also play a huge role in expression and posture. To effectively spot lies, you must become an emotionally neutral observer. Set aside personal bias. Don't accuse, just observe. Ask the same question multiple ways. Watch for story inconsistencies. Listen more than you speak. Give silence space. Liars often rush to fill it. Truthful people stick to their original story. Liars revise as needed. In high-stakes environments like law enforcement or interrogation, professionals use a method called cognitive interviewing, where the subject is asked to recall events in reverse order or describe details from different sensory angles. This increases mental load, making it harder for liars to maintain their story. In everyday life, learning to spot lies can protect you from manipulation, fraud, and emotional harm, but it's also a path to deeper authenticity. When you understand the stress that lying causes and the signs it leaves us behind, you become more honest yourself, more aware, and more connected to truth. Chapter 6: Personality Patterns. Understanding the core of human behavior. Every person you meet has a unique personality blueprint, a combination of traits, tendencies, and preferences that shape how they think, feel, and act. To read people accurately, you must look beyond temporary emotions and into deeper behavioral patterns. While body language, facial expressions, and vocal cues reveal what a person is feeling in the moment, personality reveals why they feel and act that way. The science of reading people, therefore, is incomplete without understanding personality types. At the heart of human behavior lies predictability. People are surprisingly consistent when you learn what drives them. Some people avoid conflict at all costs, others lean into dominance. Some seek validation through approval, while others thrive in solitude and independence. These patterns repeat across time, relationships, and environments. Your job as a reader of people is to identify them. One of the most effective tools for identifying personality is the Big Five personality traits model. These 5 traits, openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, create a framework for understanding individual differences. Openness reflects creativity, imagination, and a desire for new experiences. People high in openness are curious and flexible thinkers. They may wear unconventional clothing, express deep philosophical thoughts, or enjoy abstract conversations. Low openness may appear in people who prefer routine, tradition, and concrete effects. Conscientiousness reveals how organized, responsible, and goal-oriented a person is. High conscientiousness often shows in punctuality, neat appearance, structured speech, and focused behavior. These individuals are planners and rule followers. Low conscientiousness may reveal itself in scattered thoughts, missed deadlines, or spontaneous actions without preparation. Extroversion is about energy direction outward versus inward. High extroversion people are expressive, energetic, and socially dominant. They maintain eye contact, use wide gestures, and enjoy social engagement. Low extroversion individuals or introverts may speak softly, prefer solitude, and think deeply before responding. They aren't shy, they're selective. Agreeableness shows up in warmth, empathy, and cooperation. Highly agreeable people smile frequently, nod often, and prioritize harmony over conflict. They may hesitate to disagree even when they have strong opinions. Low agreeableness, in contrast, manifests in bluntness, criticism, and a confrontational tone. These individuals aren't necessarily rude. Their direct neuroticism reflects emotional stability. People high in neuroticism are prone to anxiety, mood swings, and emotional reactivity. They may over-apologize, appear tense, or struggle to hide discomfort. Low neuroticism individuals remain calm under pressure, speak steadily, and show emotional control even during conflict. Beyond the Big Five, there are classic personality archetypes found in psychology and behavioral science. One such framework is the DISC model. Dominant personalities are assertive, results-driven, and direct. Influential types are social, enthusiastic, and expressive. Stereotypes are dependable, patient, and loyal. Compliant types are analytical, detail-focused, and cautious. You can spot these patterns by observing how people make decisions, respond to stress, interact in groups, and handle authority. A dominant person often takes control in gettings, interrupts others, and speaks in firm tones. An influential type uses humor, gestures, and stories to connect. A steady person supports others, avoids confrontation, and prefers predictability. A compliant individual asks detailed questions and may appear skeptical until they've reviewed facts. The key to reading personality is watching behavior over time. Anyone can appear friendly once. Anyone can act withdrawn when tired, but patterns emerge across repeated interactions. Watch how a person behaves in different settings: work, family, public. Do they change dramatically or remain consistent? This consistency reveals their core personality, not just surface emotion. Another important dimension is understanding attachment styles, which influence how people behave in relationships. Secure individuals show open body language, relaxed eye contact, and emotional availability. Anxious individuals may appear clingy, overly expressive, or hypervigilant too. Signs of rejection. Avoidant types may seem distant, emotionless, or disinterested. These styles form early in life and deeply influence adult communication and trust behaviors. Personality traits also determine how people process conflict. Some confront, others avoid. Some seek resolution, others seek to win. The way someone argues, listens, apologizes, or justifies their actions can tell you volumes about their personality. You can also learn a lot by observing how people handle change. Do they resist it, embrace it, or fear it? Openness to change often reflects adaptability and emotional intelligence. Resistance, while not inherently bad, can signal fear-based thinking or high need for control. Understanding personality doesn't mean putting people in boxes. It means identifying tendencies. The more you observe someone, the more you begin to predict their responses. This gives you a huge advantage in relationships, negotiations, leadership, and persuasion. You know how to speak their language, appeal to their motives, and navigate their fears. When you learn to read personality, you're no longer surprised by human behavior. You understand that people are consistent, even in their inconsistencies. Their emotional outbursts, passive-aggressive comments, avoidance, or need for approval all stem from patterns deeply wired into their personality. And when you recognize those patterns, you unlock a deeper level of influence, connection, and clarity. You stop reacting to behavior and start anticipating it. You stop judging people one moment and start understanding them over time. Chapter 7. Situational Awareness. Reading thorough before the person. Before you can accurately read an individual, you must first read the environment they're in. This is called situational awareness, and it's a foundational principle in behavioral analysis, law enforcement, military intelligence, and interpersonal communication. Every person behaves differently depending on the context, their surroundings, who's watching, what's at stake, and what power dynamics are at play. To truly understand people, you must first understand the situation they're responding to. Imagine observing someone at a job interview, then at home with friends, then at a funeral. The same person will display radically different behaviors, tones, gestures, and postures in each setting, not because they are inconsistent, but because they are adapting to different environments. Skilled people readers know that human behavior doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's reactive, fluid, and shaped by context. Situational awareness begins with scanning the environment. Where is the power located in the room? Who is dominant and who is submissive? Who is being watched and who is trying to blend in? These questions help you decode not just the person but their role in the social system. For example, in a corporate meeting, the body language of employees might seem unusually stiff, not because they're dishonest or anxious by nature, but because the CEO just walked in this case, stress. Behaviors are situational, not personal. The physical environment also influences behavior. A crowded, noisy space may lead to more closed-off body language, arms crossed, minimal eye contact, shorter speech patterns, not because someone is unfriendly but because they're overstimulated. A person seated at the head of a table may appear more authoritative. Not because of confidence, but because the position itself conveys status. The environment shapes posture, tone, and interaction style, often unconsciously. Understanding context helps prevent misinterpretation. A person checking their phone repeatedly might not be disinterested. They may be awaiting an urgent call. Someone packing nervously before apprehension isn't necessarily lying or insecure. They may just be anxious about public speaking. Without context, these behaviors could be easily misunderstood. Next, observe group dynamics. People behave differently when alone versus in a crowd. In a group, people are more likely to conform, suppress emotions, or perform for approval. In private, they're often more honest and relaxed. Notice who leads the conversation, who agrees silently, who interrupts, and who stays quiet. Silence can be louder than words in a group setting. Also, study social alignment. Watch who mirrors whom, who physically turns toward whom, who leans in when someone else speaks. Mirroring and orientation tell you who respects or follows whom. If a person speaks but no one makes eye contact or leans in, it indicates low social influence. If others mimic their posture or respond immediately, they likely hold authority or admiration within the group. Emotional temperature is another key layer of situational awareness. Is the room filled with tension, boredom, excitement, or conflict? Are people sitting upright with alert expressions or slouched with tired eyes? You don't need anyone to say a word, you can feel the energy. This emotional climate affects individual behavior. A usually confident speaker might appear tense not because they're insecure but because the room is cold and unwelcoming. In high-stakes environments like negotiations, courtrooms, or boardrooms, context becomes even more critical. People perform. They calculate their behavior, they manage impressions. This is why seasoned observers don't just look at what someone is doing but ask, what would I do if I were in their position? Empathy fuels accurate observation. When you step into their shoes, considering their role, fears, motivations, and audience, you begin to interpret behavior more intelligently. Even time of day can influence behavior. People tend to be sharper, more alert, and more emotionally regulated in the morning. Fatigue, hunger, and mental overload in the afternoon can create irritation, impatience, and short answers not because of personality but because of biology. When people experience situational pressure like being watched, judged, challenged, or questioned, their true stress signals appear. This is when the most authentic microexpressions, vocal cracks, and body shifts surface. That's why interrogators and behavioral analysts often create control of discomfort because stress reveals what comfort hides. To train yourself in situational awareness, practice scanning rooms without focusing on individuals first. Ask, what is the power hierarchy here? What emotion is most present in the space? Who feels safe and who feels exposed? Who is performing and who is genuine? What external pressures may be shaping behavior? Only after reading the room do you zeroing on a person's specific behaviors. This prevents misjudgments and increases your accuracy. Behavior always makes more sense when placed in context. Remember, people are adaptive creatures. We shape ourselves to survive, to win approval, to avoid rejection. We adjust based on the people around us and the environment we occupy. When you master the ability to read the situation, you stop blaming individuals for every behavior and start seeing the deeper patterns at play. The world becomes clearer, people's motives become visible, and your ability to influence, persuade, and connect multiplies, not because you control the situation but because you understand it better than anyone else in the room. Chapter 8: Emotional Intelligence. Feeling what others can't say. Reading people isn't only about observing actions or decoding signals. It's about feeling what they feel. At the core of human understanding lies emotional intelligence, EQ, the ability to recognize, understand, and respond to the emotions of others and yourself. Without EQ, even the most skilled observer becomes a cold analyst. With it, you become not just a reader of people but a connector of hearts. Emotional intelligence begins with empathy. Not sympathy, not pity, but the raw ability to step into another's emotional world without needing to fix, advise, or escape. It's sensing sadness behind a smile. It's hearing the pain in someone's silence. It's recognizing when someone's anger is actually fear wearing armor. To read people emotionally, you must first become aware of your own emotional state. If you're angry, tired, or distracted, your interpretation of others will be distorted. Your emotional lens colors your perception. That's why emotionally intelligent observers pause to regulate themselves before judging anyone else. When you meet someone, their emotional energy speaks before their words. Are they radiating calm or buzzing with anxiety? Are their shoulders relaxed or tense? Is their voice flat or emotionally loaded? These subtle signs are emotional cues, and people with high EQ detect them instantly. Start by listening for emotional subtext. Someone might say, "I'm fine," but their voice cracks and their eyes avoid yours. The emotionally intelligent listener hears what wasn't said. People rarely say what they mean in emotionally charged situations. Instead, they test waters, drop hints, or up their truth and humor. EQ is the radar that catches what others miss. Another key to EQ is non-reactivity. When someone shows anger or defensiveness, low EQ people escalate, raising their voice, defending themselves, or shutting down. High EQ individuals lean in. They slow down. They ask, "What's really going on?" This emotional presence disarms tension and creates trust. The emotionally intelligent also recognize emotional transitions. A person may enter a room full of joy and exit with heavy silence. Something happened. EQ notices the shift and gently investigates. "You seemed excited earlier, everything still okay?" That single observation can open a door most people walk past. High EQ includes reading emotional consistency. Is someone's reaction proportionate to the situation? If they explode over a small inconvenience, the emotion likely has deeper roots. EQ sees the layers behind reactions. A joke that provokes tears, a compliment that causes someone to freeze. These are moments when unspoken trauma or insecurity surfaces and EQ doesn't ignore them. In romantic relationships, emotional intelligence is gold. It allows partners to comfort, validate, and mirror each other's feelings, strengthening bonds. Partner with high EQ knows when space is needed, when to ask questions, and when to simply be there in silence. They recognize micro-reactions, subtle eye movements, breath shifts, or hand squeezes that reveal a partner's mood without a single word. In leadership, EQ transforms authority into inspiration. Emotionally intelligent leaders don't just give orders. They read the emotional atmosphere of their teams. They can tell when morale is low, when tension brews, when someone is disengaged. They address the emotional root, not just the symptom. This builds loyalty, trust, and resilience in teams. In social settings, X shows up as emotional mirroring and calibration. You match the other person's tone, energy, and pace not to manipulate but to show understanding. If someone speaks slowly and softly and you respond loudly and fast, it creates friction. High EQ senses this mismatch and adjusts. This is why charismatic people feel in tune with everyone. They are emotionally agile. But EQ is not about emotional flooding. It's not feeling everything so deeply that you lose control. It's about emotional regulation, knowing how to hold your emotions without suppressing or dumping them. It's noticing that you're irritated but choosing to respond calmly. It's recognizing sadness without needing to collapse. To build your emotional intelligence, practice active listening. Don't interrupt. Don't plan your response, just absorb. Ask reflective questions. How did that make you feel? Instead of why did you do that, notice emotional patterns. How people react when stressed, praised, challenged. Stay present, put the phone down, maintain eye contact, give full attention, validate emotions. That sounds frustrating, goes further than don't worry about it. Emotionally intelligent people don't rush to fix others. They create a space for others to feel safe in their truth. They're not perfect, but they are present. They know that every person is carrying invisible burdens and they approach others with curiosity rather than assumption. Reading emotions is not weakness, it's strength. It's the ability to connect across barriers, calm storms before they erupt, and understand people so well that they don't have to explain themselves. It's knowing when someone is hurting even when they smile. When you master emotional intelligence, you don't just read people. You feel them, you honor them. In return, people trust you, follow you, open up to you because they sense that you truly see them. Chapter 9: Intuition, trusting the inner signal. Sometimes before the brain can name it, the body already knows it. You walk into a room and feel something is off. You meet someone and instantly feel uneasy or deeply drawn. These moments are not magic. They are your intuition at work, quietly gathering clues, comparing patterns, and alerting you before logic catches up. In the science of reading people, intuition is the bridge between experience and awareness. Intuition is often misunderstood. People think it's guesswork or emotion. But real intuition is the sum of thousands of subtle observations processed so quickly and subconsciously that it feels like instinct. It's your brain recognizing patterns it has seen before, even if you can't articulate them. Think of a skilled poker player who folds before the final card not because of the math, but because something in the opponent's face, hand tremor, or change in breathing gave them a signal. Or the therapist who senses their client isn't telling the whole truth, not because of words, but because their energy shifted. This is expert intuition built from exposure, experience, and emotional sensitivity. To develop your own intuition, you must first quiet the noise. Intuition cannot compete with overthinking, constant distractions, or emotional reactivity. It thrives in stillness. When your mind is calm, you begin to feel more. You begin to notice more. Start by paying attention to your gut reactions. The human stomach has a complex system of neurons, often called the second brain. When something feels wrong, when your stomach tightens, your breath shortens, your skin tingles, don't ignore it. Your body is reacting to something your conscious mind hasn't caught yet. This is especially powerful in people reading situations. For example, you might meet someone who says all the right things, but your gut tightens every time they speak. That's your intuition picking up occipital dissonance, something in their smile that doesn't reach the eyes, something to rehearse in their tone, something off in their body alignment. When words and energy don't match, intuition alerts you. However, intuition is not always right, and it's only as accurate as the experiences you feed it. That's why you must pair it with observation and reflection. After a social interaction, ask yourself, what did it feel? When did that feeling begin? What triggered it? Was I right in the end? The more you reflect, the more you calibrate your inner compass. With time, you'll begin to distinguish between intuition and bias. Bias comes from fear, trauma, or assumption. Intuition comes from presence, truth, and emotional intelligence. Bias judges, intuition senses. Another key part of intuition is energetic awareness. Every person gives off a unique emotional vibration. Some feel warm, others feel cold, some feel chaotic, others calm. You don't need to touch or hear someone to sense their presence. You feel it when they walk in. Intuitive readers are not just watching the surface, they're tuning into the emotional frequency underneath. You can strengthen this gift through meditation, mindfulness, and emotional clarity. The clearer you are inside, the more accurate your perceptions become. Chaos within blocks clarity without. Also, pay attention to dreams, symbols, and flashes off in sight. The subconscious mind continues processing information long after you've left a conversation. Sometimes the truth about someone you met earlier will surface in a dream. Sometimes you'll remember something odd they said hours later. Trust those delayed downloads. They're not accidents, they're your inner mind organizing truth. Many of the world's greatest leaders, negotiators, detectives, and therapists rely heavily on intuition. They walk into rooms and read the air. They sense lies before hearing them. They feel betrayal before proof appears. Not because they're psychic, but because they have trained their mind and heart to be deeply aware. Remember this, your intuition is a sacred tool. It is not loud, it whispers, it doesn't argue, it nudges. The more you trust it, the sharper it becomes. The more you ignore it, the quieter it gets. In a world of noise and performance, intuition is your most loyal guide. In reading people, intuition fills the gaps that logic cannot. It tells you when someone is dangerous even if they smile. It shows you who's genuine even when they speak little. It saves time, protects you, and leads you toward truth. But the foundation of all intuition is self-trust. You must believe in your own perception. When you know yourself deeply, you can sense the authors clearly. You no longer second-guess every feeling, you let it guide you, and in doing so you move through life not just observing people but truly knowing them. Chapter 10. Microexpressions. The truth hidden in a flash. Human beings are expressive creatures, but sometimes our faces reveal more than we intend to. Long before we speak, our emotions show up in tiny flashes across our face, barely visible, but incredibly revealing. These are called microexpressions, and they are among the most reliable signs of what someone is truly feeling inside even when they try to hide it. Mastering microexpressions is like learning to read the emotional truth beneath the mask. A microexpression is a brief involuntary facial expression that occurs when a person either deliberately or unconsciously conceals an emotion. These expressions typically last between 1/125th to 1/5 of a second. Too fast for the untrained eye, but instantly caught by someone who knows what to look for. They occur universally regardless of culture, language, or background. Psychologist Dr. Paul Ekman, one of the pioneers in facial expression research, identified 7 universal emotions that appear across all human faces, regardless of race or culture. Happiness, sadness, anger, fear, surprise, disgust, and contempt. These emotions show up in predictable facial movements even if a person is trying not to reveal them. Here's how to spot them. 1. Happiness. Look for crow's feet, wrinkles near the eyes, cheeks raised, and a genuine eye squint. Fake smiles only move the mouth. Real smiles involve the entire face. If someone is smiling with only their lips but their eyes remain tense or flat, the happiness is probably fine. 2. Sadness. Brows are drawn upward and inward. The corners of the lips are pulled down slightly and the eyelids may droop. Sadness often softens the entire face and it may come with slower movements or a lowered gaze. 3. Anger. Eyebrows lower and pull together. Eyes glare or narrow. Lips tighten or press together. Anger creates tension in the entire face. Even a flash of this followed by a polite tone may indicate suppressed frustration. 4. Fear. Eyebrows raise and pull together. Upper eyelids raise and mouth open slightly. Fear is often visible in the eyes first. If someone suddenly shows widened eyes and tensed features even for a moment, they may feel threatened or caught. 5. Surprise. Eyebrows shoot up, eyes widen, and mouth opens. But unlike fear, the muscles aren't tense. Surprise is neutral and short-lived. If someone maintains a surprised look too long, it may be fake or exaggerated. 6. Disgust. The upper lip raises, the nose wrinkles, and the eyebrows lower slightly. Disgust is often associated with physical repulsion. If someone sees or hears something they find offensive or unpleasant, this expression may flash across their face even before they speak. 7. Contempt. A subtle one-sided mouth raise. This is a complex emotion, part superiority, part dislike. Contempt is particularly dangerous in relationships and negotiations because it indicates judgment, dismissal, or disdain. The power of micro-expressions lies in their uncontrollability. While someone can rehearse their words and posture, micro-expressions betray their raw emotions. This is especially useful in high-stakes conversations, job interviews, interrogations, sales pitches, or relationships where people often conceal what they truly feel. Training your eye to detect micro-expressions takes practice. You must learn to watch the whole face, not just the eyes or lips. Instead of staring, let your gaze be soft and relaxed. Often you'll feel a change before consciously recognize what shifted. That momentary twitch in the brow, that sudden flicker of tension, it's the truth leaking out. Here are a few practical tips to sharpen your skill. Watch muted videos of conversations, then guess the emotions before hearing the sound. Replay real-life interactions in your memory. What did you feel during Someon's reaction? Use a mirror to practice making the expressions yourself. Feeling them helps you recognize them. Record and slow down videos to observe facial shifts frame by frame. Micro-expressions often appear during moments of emotional intensity, when someone is accused, challenged, surprised, or when they're telling a lie. These flashes may contradict their words. A person saying, "I'm not angry," with an angry micro-expression is likely suppressing the truth. But as always, context is king. A micro-expression is a clue, not a conviction. Don't jump to conclusions. Combine facial reading with tone, posture, timing, and baseline behavior. If someone shows a flash of fear while discussing a business idea, it might not mean they're lying. It could mean they're insecure or unsure. Your goal is not judgment but understanding. Microexpression mastery gives you a sixth sense in communication. It lets you feel what others won't admit. It empowers you to detect insincerity, sense vulnerability, and respond with greater empathy or strategy. You become more persuasive, more intuitive, and more human. When you learn to see the flicker behind the smile, the tightening jaw during praise, the momentary sadness in someone's eyes, you're no longer just reading people. You're connecting with what's real. Chapter 11. Spotting manipulators. How to detect hidden agendas. In the complex world of human interaction, not everyone is honest, kind, or well-intentioned. Some people wear masks not to hide vulnerability but to control, deceive, and manipulate. These individuals are often skilled at playing roles, creating illusions and bending reality to serve their goals. To protect yourself and others, you must learn to recognize manipulators not through paranoia but through pattern recognition, behavioral awareness, and emotional clarity. Manipulators aren't always obvious. They rarely show up shouting or snarling. In fact, they're often charming, attentive, and well-spoken. They know how to say what you want to hear, how to push your buttons, and how to twist your emotions subtly over time. Their power comes from their ability to mask intentions and exploit weaknesses. One of the first signs of a manipulator is inconsistency. They say one thing, do another. They promise, then disappear. They shift stories, change opinions, or deny earlier statements. This inconsistency isn't due to forgetfulness. It's a tactic. By keeping you confused, they gain control. When you're unsure of what's real, they step in to find reality for you. Manipulators often use flattery as a weapon. They compliment you not to uplift but to disarm. They build trust quickly, showering you with praise and validation. So you let your guard down. Then once they have emotional leverage, they begin to take. If someone seems too interested too quickly, if their admiration feels excessive or rehearsed, pause and examine their intent. Another red flag is guilt tripping. Manipulators are masters of emotional pressure. They say things like, after all I've done for you, this is how you treat me. I guess I'm just not important to you. If you really cared, you would. These statements are not sincere expressions of hurt. They're strategic place designed to make you feel responsible for their emotions and actions. They hijack your compassion and use it to control your choices. Also, beware of gaslighting. This is a form of psychological manipulation where the person makes you doubt your memory, perception, or sanity. For example, I never said that. You must be imagining things, you're too sensitive, you always overreact, you're the one causing all these problems. Over time, gaslighting erodes confidence, leaving you dependent on the manipulator's version of reality. If you constantly second-guess yourself around someone, that's a warning sign. Manipulators also love to use triangulation, bringing in a third person to validate their point or create jealousy. They may say, everyone agrees with me, you're the only one who doesn't get it, my ex never treated me this way. Even your friends think you're overreacting. This technique isolates you and makes you question your judgment. It subtly positions the manipulator as the reasonable one and you as the irrational one. In relationships, manipulators often oscillate between idealization and devaluation. At first, you're perfect, everything they've ever wanted. But once they sense emotional control, the charm fades. Criticism begins, you're not good enough, you're too much. Then when you pull away, they love bomb you again just enough to topple you back in. This cycle is addictive and emotionally damaging. Manipulators avoid accountability, they deflect blame, make excuses, or play the victim. If you confront them, they may cry, explode, or accuse you of being the problem. Their goal is not resolution, it's power. They don't want to grow, they want to dominate. To protect yourself, you must listen to your emotional responses. Do you feel drained after talking to them? Do you feel small, guilty, or anxious? Do your words get twisted? Do you walk on eggshells? These are not normal dynamics. They're indicators of manipulation. Watch for pattern control tactics such as interrupting or dominating conversations, ignoring your boundaries or testing your limits, using silence or withdrawal as punishment, turning others against you through gossip or lies. These behaviors aren't about communication. They're about psychological control. But here's the truth. Manipulators only thrive where self-trust is weak. The more you trust your gut, set clear boundaries, and value your emotional reality, the less power they have over you. Here's how to protect yourself. Name the behavior, don't rationalize or excuse it. Say, this is manipulation. Set boundaries early. I'm not okay with this, that's not how I remember it. Limit access. You don't owe manipulators your time, energy, or explanations. Don't get pulled into proving your truth. Let your clarity be enough. Surround yourself with grounded people who help you see clearly. The best defense against manipulators is emotional intelligence combined with self-worth. When you trust yourself deeply, they can't distort your reality. When you know your values, they can't shake your confidence. When you recognize their tactics, their power fades. Remember, the goal is not to become cold or suspicious, it's to be discerning. You can still be kind, compassionate, and open-hearted, just not naive. You can read through, sense hidden motives, and walk away when necessary. That's not cruelty, that's wisdom. Chapter 12. Body clusters, the power of patterns, not just pieces. Most people make the mistake of interpreting body language in isolation. They see crossed arms and assume someone is defensive. They spot a smile and assume someone is happy. But in truth, single gestures mean little unless you understand the broader body cluster. A combination of cues that appear together and reinforce the same message. Reading people accurately requires recognizing these clusters, not cherry-picking individual signs. A body cluster is a group of nonverbal behaviors that when observed together tell a consistent emotional or psychological story. Like a musical chord, it's not one note but several playing in harmony that create meaning. When gestures, posture, facial expression, and tone align, the message is clear. When they clash, something's hidden. Let's begin with an example. Imagine a person with their arms crossed, but they're smiling, leaning in slightly, and making strong eye contact. Are they closed off? Probably not. The crossed arms may simply be a comfort posture. But if that same person also leans away, avoids eye contact, and keeps their feet pointed toward the exit, now we have a defensive cluster. Understanding clusters allows you to avoid misinterpretation and make more confident judgments. Below are some of the most common body language cluster sand, what they typically signify. Cluster openness and engagement, uncrossed arms and legs, leaning slightly forward, relaxed shoulders, head tilted slightly to the side, open palms or exposed wrists, consistent eye contact, meaning this cluster shows receptiveness, trust, and interest. The person is physically and psychologically open to connection or conversation. Cluster defensiveness or withdrawal, crossed arms and or legs, leaning back or angling body away, minimal or broken eye contact, tightly pressed lips, tense facial muscles. Shoulders slightly raised, meaning the person may feel unsafe, criticized, or emotionally distant. They are either closing off emotionally or protecting themselves from perceived threat. Cluster dominance and authority, standing tall with feet shoulder-width apart, hands on hips or behind thebak. Chin slightly lifted, slow, deliberate movements, steady eye contact without blinking, invading physical space, meaning this shows confidence, control, and sometimes aggression. It's common in leaders, managers, or individuals asserting status in a social hierarchy. Cluster nervousness and deception, fidgeting with hands, hair, or objects, frequent self-touch, neck, face, mouth, sudden changes in breathing, avoidance of eye contact or unnatural overcompensation, inconsistent gesture rests with speech, swallowing or clearing the throat, meaning these behaviors suggest inner conflict, anxiety, or dishonesty. Remember, context is key. Nervousness can also stem from social discomfort or fear, not just lying. Cluster attraction and affection, mirroring posture and speech, feet and torso pointed directly at the person, dilated pupils, frequent smiling or laughing, hair printing or adjusting clothes, light touches on arm, hand, back, meaning these signs indicate warmth, romantic interest, or emotional connection. The body naturally aligns with those we're drawn to. Cluster, boredom or disinterest. Glancing around the room, tapping fingers or feet, looking at phone or watch, slouched posture, leaning away from the speaker, blank or tired facial expression, meaning this signals disengagement. The person is physically present but mentally elsewhere. Their body is already leaving the interaction. Cluster stress or inner conflict, rubbing forehead, temples, or eyes, rapid blinking or eye darting, shoulders tight and hunched, jaw clenching or teeth grinding, inconsistent breathing patterns, forced smiles or laughter, meaning these signs often show someone is mentally overwhelmed or emotionally conflicted. It's the body's way of releasing pressure or seeking comfort. When analyzing clusters, remember 3 core principles. Context is everything. A single gesture like arm crossing may mean defensiveness in one scenario but comfort in another. Always consider the situation, emotional tone, and relationship dynamics. Baseline behavior matters. If someone always taps their fingers or avoids eye contact, it might just be their natural rhythm, not a red flag. What matters is deviation from their normal. Watch for synchronization. Truthful people tend to move in sync, their words match their tone and gestures. Deceptive or guarded individuals often show asynchrony, smiling while speaking negative words, nodding while saying no, or pausing too long before answering. The best body language readers are not quick to judge. They are slow to conclude but quick to notice. They gather clues over time, patiently piecing together behavior patterns until the message becomes clear. Reading body clusters gives you the power to decode truth beneath words. Identify emotional states early and respond with emotional intelligence. You begin to sense when someone needs space, when they're open to deeper conversation, or when they're uncomfortable and trying to hide it. You also become more aware of your own body clusters. You realize what signals you send when you're anxious, disinterested, or joyful. This self-awareness allows you to communicate more clearly, reduce misunderstandings, and build deeper rapport. In the end, reading people is not about memorizing gestures. It's about tuning into harmony or disharmony in the orchestra of behavior. It's about listening to the unspoken symphony of emotions, movements, energy, and intention. Chapter 13. Building trust through observation. From reader to connector, reading people is not just a skill for interrogation rooms or negotiation tables. It's a gateway to deeper human connection. When you understand people, when you see them clearly beneath the layers, they feel it, they sense it. And this builds something rare in our fast, distracted world. Trust. Trust isn't given freely. It's earned slowly, silently, through consistent presence, genuine curiosity, and unspoken understanding. The science of reading people, when used with empathy, becomes the art of making people feel safe, seen, and respected. So how do you turn your skills of observation into real trust? The first step is non-judgmental awareness. When someone senses they're being watched, to be judged, they close up. But when they feel they're being noticed, with kindness, with openness, with no agenda, they open like a flower in sunlight. People don't want to be fixed. They want to be felt. They want to be accepted even in their confusion, their fear, their messiness. Your job is not to diagnose or control. Your job is to be a mirror that reflects without distortion. When you read someone with neutrality, they lean in, they begin to trust. Next comes emotional attunement. This is the ability to adjust your energy to meet someone where they are. If someone is sad, you don't rush them with cheerfulness. If they're excited, you don't weigh them down with seriousness. You match their rhythm, not to imitate, but to respect their emotional space. This tuning in is subtle, powerful, and instantly builds trust. Trust also forms through consistency of observation. When someone sees that you remember details about them, what they said, how they reacted, what they value, they feel important. They feel held in your attention. And attention is love in action. For example, if a colleague once shared their anxiety about public speaking and weeks later you ask, "How did your presentation go?" That moment tells them, "I see you, I remember, you matter." This creates a bond far deeper than small talk ever could. Another way to build trust through people readingies to respond to what's unspoken. If someone is visibly tense but says, "I'm okay," gently asking, "Yowzer, I noticed you seemed a bit off today," can open the door. When you name what others hide with care and zero pressure, you give them permission to drop the mask, but timing matters. You must choose the right moment. In a crowd, in public, people often won't share one in safety, they will. Observation builds trust best in quiet moments after the meeting, during the walk, on the drive home when walls are lower and masks slip. There's also the trust that comes from letting people reveal themselves over time. Skilled readers are patient. They don't push, they observe, wait, and allow truth to unfold. When people feel you're not rushing to categorize or expose them, they relax, they reveal more. Trust deepens. Trust also grows when you mirror vulnerability. When you share something real about yourself, something human, not polished or rehearsed, you invite others to do the same. It tells them this is a safe space for truth. People open up to those who risk opening up first. It's important to understand that building trust doesn't mean always agreeing. Sometimes trust is built in gentle challenge, in calling out a lie with love, in questioning a pattern you notice, in refusing to enable self-deception. If done with respect and care, this strengthens the bond, not breaks it. Here's the key: people trust those who both see clearly and care deeply. If you see but don't care, you become cold and clinical. If you care but don't see, you become naive and easily manipulated. But when you combine perception with compassion, your presence becomes medicine. To become a connector, ask yourself daily, did I make anyone feel truly seen today? Did I notice something others missed? Did I reflect someone's truth without judgment? Did I use my observations to understand, not control? Trust isn't built in grand gestures, it's built in eye contact held a second longer. In remembering Somyeon's name, in asking follow-up questions, in hearing the pause behind their words, in saying, "Inartist." These small acts of attunement are the bricks that build lasting human bridges. When you master the science of reading people, you don't become manipulative, you become a magnetic. People want to be around you because they feel safe. They don't know why exactly, but they feel lighter, freer, more themselves. That's because you're doing what few people do, truly paying attention. And in a world full of noise, the one who listens deeply, silently, sincerely will always be the others trust. Chapter 14, The Art of Calibration. Adjusting your approach based on what you see. Reading people is only half the power. The other half lies in what you do with what you see. That's where calibration comes in. Calibration means adjusting your words, your energy, your timing, and your behavior based on the signals others are giving you. It's the ability to respond, not react, in a way that builds connection, avoids friction, and influences others effectively. Think of it this way: reading people gives you the data, but calibration is the response strategy. A great communicator doesn't just notice Somyeon's eyes closed off. They shift their tone to become more gentle, back off slightly, or change topics. A persuasive leader doesn't push harder when they sense resistance. They pause, ask questions, and move sideways instead of forward. Calibration is the difference between being right and being effective. Start with presence. To calibrate well, you must stay present. You can't be in your head planning your next line. You have to feel the room, notice micro reactions in real time, and adjust quickly. A slight frown, a shoulder pullback, a delayed nod. These subtle signs tell you when to pivot. If you miss them, you bulldoze the conversation. Gray calibrators are watchers first, speakers second. Observe the feedback loop. Every time you speak or act, you get feedback. Facial expression, body language, tone shift, energy level. Are they leaning in or pulling away, laughing or silent, responding with warmth or going cold? These cues help you know if your approach is working. If your joke lands flat, calibrate. If your advice triggers defensiveness, recalibrate. If your question sparks curiosity, lean in deeper. Calibration isn't manipulation, it's adaptation. It shows emotional intelligence, social awareness, and respect for the other person's experience. Calibrate your energy. One of the fastest ways to create connection or tension is energy mismatch. If someone is soft-spoken and reflective and you come in loud and fast, they'll likely withdraw. If someone is energetic and passionate and you're monotone and slow, they'll disengage. The key is energy mirroring, not mimicry but alignment. Raise or lower your intensity tone at theirs. It creates comfort and trust. Once rapport is built, you can slowly guide them into your desired energy zone. Calibrate your questions. Good readers know what questions to ask. Great calibrators know when and how to ask them. If someone is tense, don't ask direct or confrontational questions. Try gentle curiosity. What's been on your mind lately? You seem a bit distracted. Want to talk about it? If someone is guarded, avoid asking for personal details immediately. Build safety first. If someone is open and emotional, go deeper with, what did that moment teach you? How did that really feel for you? The tone of your question, supportive versus interrogative, matters more than theories themselves. Calibrate your silence. Silence is a tool. In emotionally intense moments, speaking too soon can shut someone down. A well-timed pause allows others to gather their thoughts, feel safe, and go deeper. If someone shares something vulnerable, don't rush to comment. Sit in the silence. Let them know you're fully there. Sometimes the best calibration is doing nothing, just holding space. Calibrate based on roles and hierarchy. Your approach should shift depending on the power dynamics. You don't speak to a nervous intern the same way you do to a confident CEO. You don't challenge a client like you would a close friend. Understanding someone's role and how they see themselves helps you calibrate your communication style. High-status individuals often prefer direct, concise language. Sensitive individuals respond better to warmth and validation. Analytical thinkers appreciate logic and structure. Emotional types want to feel heard before being offered solutions. Know your audience then adjust. Calibrate in conflict. In conflict, calibration becomes survival. If someone is angry, you don't match their volume. You lower yours. If they blame, you don't defend, you reflect. If they shut down, you don't push. You soften. The goal is not to win, but to de-escalate and understand. Emotionally intelligent calibrators disarm defensiveness, not by being passive but by being centered and responsive. Calibrate your boundaries. Calibration also means knowing when not to adjust. Some people will try to pull you into their chaos, guilt you into over-explaining, or dominate your time. In these cases, the best calibration is firm boundaries with calm delivery. I hear you, but I'm not available right now. Let's talk about this when we've both had time to think. I'm not comfortable with that approach. You don't have to match someone's chaos to honor their emotions. Calibration is influence. When done with integrity, calibration becomes a superpower of influence. You guide conversations, resolve tension, spark connection, and make people feel deeply understood. All without forcing, faking, or dominating. You become a social chameleon with a spine. Flexible yet rooted in truth. In moments of high emotion or importance, people remember how you made them feel. If you can read their cues and calibrate accordingly, they'll feel safer with you than almost anyone else. That trust opens doors that logic never could. In a world obsessed with output, saying the right thing, winning the argument, closing the deal, calibration is the quiet, powerful skill of feeling your way through. It doesn't shout, it doesn't push. It adapts, aligns, and connects with precision. You stop being tone deaf. You stop being emotionally blind. You become the person people feel heard by, safe with, and drawn to. Chapter 15: The Master Reader. Becoming a mirror, not a mask. By now you've uncovered a powerful truth. Reading people is not about control, it's about connection. It's not about having an edge over others, it's about standing with them, not above them. When you become a master reader of people, you manipulate, you illuminate. You become the one who sees the storm behind the smile, the story behind the silence, the strength behind the struggle. And that makes you unforgettable. Master readers don't rely on tricks or tactics. They rely on awareness, presence, and humanity. They walk through life with a quiet clarity, tuned into more than just words. They see people not as categories, roles, or profiles, but as breathing, feeling, layered beings. And because of this, they build relationships authors can't. So what does it take to reach this level? It begins with humility. The more you observe, the more you realize how much lies beneath the surface. The more deeply you listen, the less you need to speak. Master readers don't boast about their skills, they embody them. They don't tell people what they see. They reflect it subtly in how they respond, how they make people feel, how they show up. They've developed unshakable inner calm. Their emotions don't spill over and cloud their perception. They've learned to pause, breathe, notice. They can feel someone's anger without absorbing it. They can sense deceit without becoming cynical. They can witness pain without rushing to fix it. A master reader has emotional boundaries. They know where others end and they begin. They can't sit with someone's chaos without losing their own center. They can offer space, not solutions. They ask better questions. They listen for what isn't said. And they trust their instincts because their instincts are well trained, tested, and aligned with truth. They understand that every person is a walking story, a collection of moments, memories, fears, and hopes. And their job is not to decode someone as if they're a puzzle but to witness them without agenda. That witnessing is rare. Most people walk through life unseen. When you truly see someone, you give them a kind of healing they didn't even know they needed. Master readers see beneath behavior. They understand that rudeness often hides insecurity, that perfectionism often masks fear of not being enough, that anger often protects deep grief, and that silence is not emptiness. It's often overwhelmed emotion. They don't react to behavior, they respond to what's behind it. They also know when to speak and when to remain silent. Sometimes the most powerful response is a nod, a presence. A mirror, they aren't driven by ego. They don't need to show off what they see because they've learned that when you understand people deeply, your actions speak louder than your interpretations. The master reader is also a master of self-awareness. They know that their own biases, wounds, and emotions shape how they see others, so they do the inner work. They question their assumptions, they reflect on their reactions, they strive to stay clean in their lens so their perception is accurate, not distorted. And most importantly, they never stop learning. Every person is a new chapter, a new variation, a new combination of patterns. They remain curious, humble, evolving. They never assume they've figured someone out because they know that people are not equations. They are oceans, always shifting, always deeper than expected. To become a master reader, practice the following every day. Be present in every interaction, even brief ones. Watch not just what people say but how they say it. Observe without trying to solve. Listen without needing to respond, reflect on your own emotional responses. What are they telling you? Trust your gut but test it. Verify your instincts with patience and curiosity. See everyone. Yes, everyone is worthy of your attention and respect, because here's the real secret. The greatest readers of people are the ones who make others feel seen, not analyzed, not diagnosed, seen, understood, held. And when you become that person, you don't just read people, you transform them. You become the mirror in which they recognize themselves. The stillness that calms their storm, the rare soul who listens when no one else does. That is the gift of reading people. That is the legacy you leave, not by what you say but by what you see.